Hey bass anglers, today the search is over. We're going to talk about the best finesse swim bait setup, from the jig to the lure to the reel to the rod to the line, everything. We're going to demystify it. I want to give you the most confidence possible when you go out to fish with a finesse swim bait. They're great in the fall, they're great this time of the year. So there's a ton of jig heads and swim baits, and there's just a lot of product on the market, and I want to cut through to my confidence setups to maybe give you some confidence to go out and search with this bait and catch some fish this fall. Okay, there's a lot of product out there for swim baits. It's just flooded, and you can really do a lot of searching out there to try to find out, you know, what works the best for a jig head, what works the best for a swim bait. So we'll start with a jig head, and for me, my go-to is the Freedom Tackle swim bait jig head. It's got a premium black nickel hook on it. It's super sharp, sticky sharp, it's strong. They've got a custom head design for swimming, so this thing's gonna come through cover cleanly. It's just a very hydrodynamic shape. I don't like big heads. I know a lot of heads they want to make look more like fish, but this has got a fish style head, but it's very compact, and I like that about it. They do put some of the weight of the jig on the keeper, and the keeper is special too in that it's got two different barbed areas, right, made up of the weight material that are pointing back at the head of the lure, which really hang on to the bait extraordinarily well in my opinion. Now the single ones work, right? And the little hooks work. And a keeper of most any style will have some function. But I'm telling you, this double keeper with the angled back barb on it really hangs on to a bait and to the bait. If you're gonna use a bait, you might as well use the best possible bait. And I use the Kitech Fat Swing Impact. It is, you know, it's a Japanese bait. It is like the Yamamoto of Senko's. Kitech is that to swim baits. They're a hand-poured bait. They're extraordinarily soft. Now there's some trade-off with durability, obviously, with the softness, which is why it's so important to have that double barb of the Freedom Tackle jig head. But the bait is soft, it's got the ribs on it, it's got some alignment slots on it for your hook because it's important that it be straight. But the soft plastic allows this thing to do something that most other swim baits can't do, and that's move at very slow speeds. So as the water cools down and you want to slow your retrieve down, this thing is still going to move. It's got a nice wobble, it's got a tight shimmy, and it just catches fish. It's just one of those things. It's like a Yamamoto Senko in that when you're using this, you can have confidence that your lure is not going to be the reason that you don't catch fish. They're just high quality. And it's difficult to get the consistency and reproducibility of that quality with a hand pour, but Kitech does it. Now you pay a little more, there's a premium price for them, like I said, and they sacrifice a little bit of durability. But if I want something on my line for a swim bait in the fall that I know is going to catch fish, I'm reaching for a Kitech 3.8 Fat Impact. The Swing Impact Fat Kitech. So I'm using the 3.8 Kitech, and I'm going to start with the 1/8 ounce jig, and it's going to take a lot of wind or cooler temperatures to force me to a higher weight, and that's because I'll be fishing probably deeper and slower when the water cools down. Right now, the water is warm. We're in that transition period. We're in the second week of September now, and it's still, you know, 80 degrees in the afternoons up here, and cooling down into the, you know, 50s, 60s, 50s, and sometimes 40s at night, high 40s. But the days are still warm, and the barometer has been 30 inches of mercury forever. It's gone up, it's gone down, but it's hovered in the 30s, which is pretty high, and the fish are suspended. And I've noticed that, and if the fish are suspending, I'm going to be using a 1/8 ounce jig on my 3.8. I want it up in the water column. I do not want to fish under the fish. I'm going to be fishing for smallmouth, and typically they feed up, especially when they're suspended even, so you need to be even higher. So start with the 1/8. and then allow current and wind and temperature to be the reasons you use a heavier bait to try to get down. You're trying to get down deeper, or you're trying to slow your retrieve down and comb it across the bottom when things cool off. But when weather's warm, transition periods, and you're searching, I like to start with a 1/8 and keep it high and let the fish feed up to my lure coming through. For equipment, and I'll explain why that's important, but I'm using a 7-foot, at least a 7-foot medium action spinning rod. I'm going to use at least a 2000 series spinning reel. I'm going to use 10-pound high visibility braided main line. I'm going to use a 10-pound fluorocarbon leader, about 12 feet of it. And the reason I'm using this entire setup like this is to get the best castability and the best conversion on the bites that I can out of this bait. And one of the reasons why you need a medium action rod is that you're going to be fishing a moving bait, and you want to do a couple things. One, you want to be able to detect the bite, so the braided line helps you detect the bite. You want to be able to protect from species other than what you're fishing for and cover. And that's what the fluorocarbon leader allows you to do. It's abrasion resistance in case you catch a pike or something, you're not losing your bait. Typically, you'll get some abrasion protection from the fluorocarbon line. And then what's happening is this bait is moving along at a fairly good rate, because again, we're trying to keep it up high in the water column right now. And when a fish comes and gets this, he's overtaking a moving bait. And as that happens, you want the braided line to feel the bite. And you also don't want to, with the braided line, pull it away from him too fast. And if you're using too stiff of a rod and braided line, you'll actually pull this away from the fish and you won't convert, because they'll be getting the tail as you pull it away from it. You'll feel a little bit of weight and bam, you're pulling it away. This allows, this setup, the softer tip of the medium rod allows this bait to be caught and lets the fish catch up with it to actually get some hook penetration. And what happens is then when you're reeling this along, and you feel that bite happen, what you're gonna do is you're gonna just reel up a little slack, and you're just gonna put the rod down to the side, and you're just gonna reel into it. There is no big hook set with this. It's more of a reel set. And then you're gonna, as you get that good sharp freedom tackle hook into them, then you're gonna be relying on constant continuous pressure, and the forgiveness of the rod is gonna help with the surging of the fish, and having a good reel on there with a good drag is gonna be important too, because you want pressure on that fish. You've got a single hook, you're gonna get good penetration with this because it's a needle sharp hook and it's strong, but you wanna keep constant pressure on them, so you're gonna want your drag set such that you've got some drag going out so that you can put some continuous pressure all the way back to get the fish in the boat. Castability of this is really good in the wind. The spinning rod allows you to do that. I like to use I'll use over a 6:2 to 1 gear ratio spinning reel on it, but I make sure that the most important thing about my spinning reel is that it's got a good drag system in it. So that's your setup. All these things work together. The rod, the reel, the line, the leader, all work together to get this bait to effectively hook and land fish. So it's kind of a package deal. This is my go-to in the fall for searching. And when I'm throwing a swim bait, you can't beat it. It's a confidence setup for me. Kitech's got a lot of colors, so from a color standpoint, you're just matching the forage. Whether it's a minnow, whether it's a perch, or whether it's whatever bait fish is in your system, they're going to have a product to help you match. But if you put these things together and go out there and do some castings and let the wind be your friend, don't run from the wind in the fall. You can use this system right in the wind, throw it on the wind-blown shorelines, and you're going to catch fish. You're going to get bit, and then it will become your confidence setup too. So hope these tips are helpful and put some fish in the boat for you. Please like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time on the water.